you don't need to put your hand up if you need to go, to any of those things. There's also a pop-up cafe, so if you want something a little bit fancier in terms of refreshments and cakes, then please do feel free. We may get a little bit of noise from next door. Apparently we're up against belly dancing in a little while. If you disappear for more than 3 minutes, we know where you've been. Followed by table tennis, so at 11, which can coincide. So if anybody, is feeling particularly active, we were going to do an activity today, weren't we? But unfortunately it's not room, so next time. Right, so that's enough from us for now. So if we can go room start with you. So.
I'm Reece. I'm a full-time support worker for WYCAS. I'll let Mitch explain a bit about what's going to do better than me.
Hi, I'm Niraj, I'm Chief Financial Officer of WYCAS. We help families affected by mental health addiction and domestic abuse. We provide services which mainly support work, support work, counselling, mentoring and diversity activity, help men, women and young people. I've put some flyers for our services over there if you're not familiar with us. We do actually have some funded programs at the minute which we can offer, so if anyone's interested in anything, just please let me know. But yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Christy, Therapeutic Service Manager at Dipsel, so we support young people 13 to 17 who are neurodiverse with their wellbeing, and we also support young people 16 to 25 with cancer transitions.
Thank you.
I'm Katy, Sargeant. I'm a community accountant from WYCAS, and I'm going to be talking through some of our services and things shortly.
Hi, I'm Olivia Engel. I'm a researcher from Leeds Beckett University, but I'm based at St George's Community Centre and working on a sort of council BCSE sector project, which I could talk about at length, but I will not. So, but it's to do with health and well-being. So yeah, just here to observe.
Thank you.
I'm Mike Romano, and I'm the Community Anchor Network advisor at Nova, at least for the next few weeks.
Wow, you're
We did a contract, 12-month contract.
right. I would stage a friendly protest. How's that Nova? Probably not this time.
Well, it's nothing that I didn't know about when I signed up for a 12-month contract. ICB funding for the Community Anchor Network in this current phase that I've been working in, and anybody who knows what's happening with the ICB's budgets will know that across the country they're all being cut by about 30% anyway. So this being a non-statutory project, then there's not much chance of it being refunded through that route.
Have you got another job lined up?
Not yet, no. I'm not too worried. It's not a terrible new experience. If I fix the contract, it's no need to panic. Thanks.
We'll open it for you.
My name's Tom, I'm a support worker from WYCAS. I'm here to kind of get to know everyone, show my face a bit, learn a bit.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Simon Dowland. I work for Realise, who offer free adult skills funded courses all across West Yorkshire. But our main focus in Wakefield is delivering a contract called Multiply in the community, which at the end of it, participants will receive a £40 shopping voucher. So always looking for people to link up with.
I'm Ella. I'm a project lead for an appointment support service with Wakefield. We're a social prescribing service, and we have self-management service as well, alongside the appointment support service.
Hi everyone, I'm Jasmine. I'm also from Liverpool. I've joined last week as service coordinator on a maternity cover, so it's really nice to get to know you.
My name's Howard. I'm the new social prescriber for Wakefield.
Hi, I'm Imogen. I work for the National Coal Mine Museum, which is just down the road,
We've kind of historically been really good for a visitor offer and getting people on our underground tour. We've kind of got that USP, but we've not been very good at connecting with people on our doorstep in our local community. And we've got a really massive site, a fabulous offer like Nature Trail, Refed, so many things that we could be working on more with people, like different community groups. So we're quite keen to get out and work with different people, be known for different things other than an underground tour.
Fantastic, thank you. A little bit about us, I suppose. Every night up until recently, we were called Family Fit, and we still are really passionate about doing things with families together. A lot of services are targeted at children, young people, adults, but actually there's very little on offer for families to access together across the board. But, so our thing is about getting them playing games and just having fun, kind of like exercise by stealth, if you will. And since then we changed our name to Evergreen Active because we also do walking groups, running groups. We work with during school holidays with children. We work in mental health. We do menopause support. We do healthy cooking. So it was a little bit more. It became a lot more. And we passionately believe that being active and enjoying being active and how it makes you feel is for everybody. It's not a one size fits all kind of thing, but everybody can benefit from it. So yeah, that's us in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, from a passion to profession in terms of how we set up.
Oh, I like that.
Come on.
Write that down. Let's go to the next funding bit.
Yeah, we deeply care. I think that's the spice that we have. We deeply care about the impact we have on people's lives. Paula's life was transformed in terms of how she reached out to how health and physical activity can benefit. I've recognised through conversation and discussion we've had that my anchor has always been physical activity, so I've never struggled in the same way that other people may have, because it's always been there for me. So I've been very fortunate at a very young age. It's always been my go-to, whether it's been the mum dad breaking up, things happening in school, anything like that. It's always been my anchor, so I've always reached out for support. So I've been very fortunate in my life, and it's only come in recent years so I've recognised that. So when other people struggle in different ways, maybe because they don't have that thing they can catch on to and talk about, and obviously Mamat is a fantastic organisation that does that and supports people there. So for us, it's kind of trying to showcase that to people and recognise it, and using physical activity to support mental health and nutritional health. We do that to really help people's lives, and it works. We've seen that. So yeah.
And we do everything in the group as well, don't we? So like, I think we used to do like about 80 people. The night before it was 70 odd, and so yeah, it's about social connection as well. So thank you for coming to our TED Talk. And we'll make it fun. That's the main thing. So we welcome you, Katy, to talk about all the great stuff you guys do.
Right, hello everybody again. Originally it was my boss Amanda Peters, who's the chief exec of WYCAS, and myself that were coming, and she kind of said yes, we can come, and then told me she was on holiday. So, so I thought I was just going to talk through some of the things that we can offer groups in the area, and there's some services that are paid for, and then there's a lot of stuff that we also do for free. So I'll just kind of talk through that. My name's Katy, as I said. I'm one of the community accountants at WYCAS. That's our address, email address, etc. So what is WYCAS? We're a charity ourselves, and we help organisations manage their finances efficiently and effectively. And we work with over 600 organisations in West Yorkshire. And as I said, we offer a number of services. So I'm just going to run through what we have. So our core work is accounts preparation and independent examination of charity accounts. It's not just charities, we also do CICs as well. We also do art council funding verification, so if sometimes art council grants need a kind of separate certificate to say that the money's been spent how, in the purposes that it was awarded. So we do that as well. So we also offer QuickBooks. So sorry, I should have actually written that out before. So you use QuickBooks. So we've got a number of resources that people can use to sort of manage their finances. And I'll come on to that a bit later on. But QuickBooks Online is a kind of accounting software. And it's normally for if you're kind of a bit bigger organisation, or if you've got lots of grant funding and you have to kind of account for all of those separately. So QuickBooks is actually quite a good piece of software that we encourage our clients to use. We can actually offer a subscription at a reduced rate, so it's cheaper than if you buy it direct from Intuit, who are the people that have developed it. And with that, you also get some basic support and help with it. So that's £22.50 a month, including VAT. We also offer QuickBooks training, so you're setting them up on QuickBooks and kind of like one-to-one support if it's needed. So that is a paid-for service. We also offer bookkeeping and management accounting services. We are quite stretched in that resource, but if anybody does need help with any bookkeeping or management accounting, then just get in touch and we can see what we can do to help. We also do financial health checks and one-to-one support. So I'll just move on now to a lot of the free services that we do. So we do loads of training courses. We have a regular sort of set of courses that run several times, either monthly or several times a year. So we do a basic bookkeeping course, and we have a WYCAS cash book, which is an Excel file, but it's kind of been developed over a number of years, and it's for people who are slightly smaller, don't have the level of complexity that maybe would warrant using QuickBooks. Our cash book is the perfect thing. We really encourage all our clients to use the cash book, and even people who aren't our clients can go onto our website and download the cash book and use it. And we, alongside that, we do a monthly training course on how to actually use it. And these guys actually came on it a few months ago.
Yeah. So which is why we've invited you to come and talk about it, because we can't recommend it enough. It's the way you delivered it was, and so I told Amanda this.
Yes, thank you. She said that you've given us some really good feedback.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we are. This is not our passion or profession. But the way it's delivered was really easy to follow, really easy to understand. Perfect for however many kind of things you've got going on as well, sort of different, and especially when people are asking for your financials, monitoring and what have you. So yeah, 100% recommend if you haven't already taken that course to definitely.
I'm a massive fan of the cash book. It's really good. I mean, even with it has the capability to deal with restricted funding as well. So, but it is a cash book. It's not a kind of full accruals accounting system. But for most people, it kind of does the job basically, and it makes our lives in terms of preparing accounts really easy, because we know how it works. We've developed it, and it kind of just slots into our kind of processes and stuff as well. So it's really good. We do a budget setting and forecasting course, and also a preparing for the year-end course. So they run at least a couple of times a year. On our website, you can go to the specific training page, and it's got a whole calendar of all the training that's coming up, and you just need to kind of book on it. The cash book course does get quite heavily oversubscribed, so you sometimes have to go on a waiting list, but if there's enough demand, then sometimes we can put on an extra course and just deliver that for additional people.
You don't have to be a client to go on those.
You don't know, so we cover like the whole of West Yorkshire. Actually, I've missed out a bit. Sorry about our background. I'll just go back a bit. Actually, sorry. So we, in terms of our accounts preparation and IE, that we charge fees for that. But we also get some funding from the various infrastructure bodies in West Yorkshire. So we do get some funding from Nova, it's about 17k a year. We get some from Coldsdale through the BSI, and a little bit from Leeds, and unfortunately nothing from Bradford at the moment. I think that's been cut. Yes. So we kind of have, we're funded partly by grant funding and then partly by our paid for services. But as a charity, we don't make a profit. Obviously, we just kind of like have to deliver a kind of break-even budget. So in terms of the fees, they are slightly subsidised, I guess, by some of the grant funding. And you know, we are specialists in charity accounting, whereas some other accountancy practices kind of aren't necessarily specialists in charity accounting. When we then maybe inherit them, it's kind of like, oh right, okay, this hasn't really been done properly previously. So we're kind of, you know, it is our passion, you know, kind of charity accounting.
I think that's definitely a thing. We know a CIC actually, but limited by shares, not guaranteed. Our accountant has dealt with CICs previously, so she's unfortunately we're very lucky that we're her little freebie client, but we know of another that's gone to, in fact, at another networking event, local accountant thought we supporting local, they supported local. That accountant knew nothing about CICs or charities. She was charging VAT, it's cost them money to get out of the contract as well, because she then charged them to leave early. So yeah, we didn't know it was a thing, we just thought everybody knew everything, but no.
I mean, in terms of, like a lot of people, we're really stretched resource-wise as well. It's really difficult to recruit accountants, mainly because we don't pay very well. If anyone is interested, or if anyone knows of anyone that's, you know, looking for somebody to do their accounts for them, then all we say is just on our website you can fill in a quote form, and then someone will get back to you or get back to them. And it all depends as well, like how far in advance, when your filing deadline is, and all that kind of thing. But the further in advance, the better, in terms of then being able to plan it into our work. If it's kind of like, oh, it needs to be done by next week, then it's not going to happen. In terms of one-off courses that we do as well, we do one on the role of treasurer and trustee responsibilities, understanding CIC structure, mainly for development officers, that one. Red flag training, again for development officers, which is kind of things to look out for basically. So if you're dealing with a group and, you know, just in terms of like looking at a set of accounts and kind of interpreting what it can tell you, because you can actually tell a lot from a set of accounts if you kind of know what you're looking for. And then, well, same kind of connected to that, so the understanding applicants' accounts for grant providers. The red flag training, I guess, is more like the real kind of like, this is a big problem, you know, this is the sort of thing you need to look out for. When we're looking at their kind of their sets of accounts. So yeah, as I say, we have a training page on the website, and it kind of explains how you can book them, you know, when they are and all that kind of thing. We also offer advice and support, again, to anybody, so you don't, as I was saying earlier, you don't have to be a client to download the cash book. Equally, with advice and support, we have an email address, and you just, if you have a query, just email the info email address, and basically within WYCAS they kind of get shared out amongst, me being one of them, but the community accountants kind of pick them up on a rota basis. And someone will get back to you. It might not be, well, it won't be the same day, unlikely, but someone will get back to you either with an answer on something, a technical point or whatever, or we can point you in the direction of some guidance or somewhere else, depending on what the query is. So for example, like VAT, we're not experts in VAT. We know some stuff about VAT, but you know, we can point you in other directions if that's something that you need some help with. We have a number of tools, finance tools, one of which I've mentioned already. So the cash book. When you actually look at it, it does look a bit complicated and a bit intimidating. But actually, once you if you go on the training, or sometimes depending on your level of Excel, we can sometimes just do a quick half-hour run through separately, where rather than going on the course. But it is very straightforward and logical once you get your head around. There's quite a few tabs and things, but once you get your head around it, it's fairly okay. And you guys are getting on alright with yours.
Like I say, Excel phone as well as so, even we can find our way around it. So that's testament.
We also have a budgeting template which helps with forward planning. So that's something that we normally. When we do the accounts preparation, we also send along with the accounts management recommendations and observations sheets. And a lot of charities don't tend to do or sometimes don't tend to do budgets, and we really try and push that, because that helps you look forward to next year. Are you facing any problems in the future thing, are you likely to be? And it helps focus the mind and get you thinking about things that might need to happen now to help your future financial position. We also have a month-end checklist, which is just a list of things that you should, is good financial practice basically, in terms of keeping on top of the finances, doing bank reconciliations, things like that, which then makes the year-end process much more efficient if you've kept on top of any errors and things that have come up through the month. We also do quarterly finance forums, probably a little bit like this, I guess. We normally have a theme for the meeting, and then there are various finance people from groups within. I think we do them for different. So we do a Calderdale, we do a Leeds, we do a Bradford one, I think. It's just a bit of a network discussion about any finance issues that are coming up. We have a mailing list which you can sign up to, and that we don't bombard people with stuff. It's not a marketing tool or anything. It's just any developments within the charity sector, like charity finance or anything in West Yorkshire that might be relevant. So we can sign up to that. And we also offer, if anyone's got any finance jobs that need advertising, then they can go on our website for free as well. So again, everything just through that info at WYCAS email address, and Miranda, who is our office manager, does whatever she needs to do, distributes it out for action. And then just finally, we've just recently started a project called WYCAS, which is, I don't know, so my colleague Claire Welling, who works for WYCAS, is working with Julie Baker, is it?
Yeah, there has been contact with Julie, yeah.
And I think it's quite early in the process, but basically the project is to try and identify groups that are in need of finance support with people who have finance experience that maybe are looking to do some voluntary work to try and enhance their CVs and things.
Yeah, it's a bit narrower than that as well, though, because there's particular target groups which does narrow the field down. So the target groups are...
You mean the target groups for the help or for the volunteers?
For the volunteers.
Yeah, so I think it's looking at refugees and asylum seeker charities.
It is, yeah. It's quite prescriptive in that sense,
right?
Which does narrow the field down, and the field is interesting. It's an interesting kind of dynamic, because it's great to offer that. Those particular groups that are specified may have particular barriers that are going to stop them. Therefore, it's going to restrict your flow of applicants. Funny enough, we had a conversation about this yesterday.
Right.
And we kind of feel that you're probably better off casting the net much wider, and obviously identifying those that come from those particular target groups. But if you cast it wider, you're going to get you've got that chance to get the volume.
Right.
And the other side would, and again, I'm not dealing with it directly, but it was just a conversation with Julie. We're not sure what the demand is from the organisations who are looking for finance volunteers.
Right. So I think Claire, you obviously know more about it than I do, but Claire, I think, has kind of, from our list of clients, has potentially, as a starting point, has like identified potential groups that might benefit from some bookkeeping or finance assistance. So I think that's the starting point. I don't know whether you've...
No, I mean, I'm not involved with it, I'll be honest with you, but it was just a kind of a 10-minute conversation yesterday for me. Timescales are a bit tight as well, I think you might have to look at that timescale.
Right, okay, I mean, I'll feed that back. I'm not really involved in the project at all.
Yeah, and you're talking to somebody who's indirectly just aware of it, so you've got to be careful.
Yeah.
But that's the sense I got.
So at the end of the meeting, this is all this done.
We'll leave it there.
Okay, maybe we'll...
Mike and Katy said.
Chat afterwards. So that's just something else. I mean, I think originally the idea was that it was going to be a much bigger project, and we were looking for much more funding, and it was going to be kind of like some finance apprentices that would then be sent out, and the idea of it was good, but we didn't get the funding, or whatever funding might have been potentially on offer was then withdrawn, wasn't available. So it has had to be scaled right back for the time being. So I don't know whether it's now it's a bit more of a pilot thing, see how it goes, and then try and go out for more funding once there's a bit of a result on the pilot. I don't know, but anyway, maybe we can have a chat afterwards.
We'll have an indirect chat, as it were.
Yeah.
Because both lot kind of in the driving seat on that, or in the back
Well,
seat.
will there be updates on that on the website or through the newsletter?
I don't know actually. I will find out, and as I say, I think so. Claire used to be a community accountant, and then she kind of went down to 1 day a week with WYCAS just doing specific stuff, and then she's come back in 2 days a week to work on this project. So and she only officially started on it I think a couple of weeks ago. So it is very early days, I think. But anyway, I'll find out what the kind of update process is on that. But in the meantime, if anyone is in either of the groups, either the kind of the target groups are as I say, like potential asylum seekers or refugees who aren't able to be paid for work, I guess, at the moment, but potentially doing some voluntary work would be good for their CVs sort of for the future. I think that's my understanding of it. So that was it really.
Thank you very much. Has anyone got any questions for Katy on any of that?
Just on your WYCAS project, you're saying about the asylum seekers and refugees. Have you linked up with the Refugee Council?
Again, I don't know. I would imagine possibly yes, but I can just note and
just one that might
Yeah.
be worse.
The city sanctuary, the Wakefield city sanctuary.
yes. Okay.
And is anybody working with those groups? I don't know. Are you sort of taking? I appreciate this is the one area of your brilliant presentation.
No, but I'm happy to say any feedback or questions, whatever I can take back and talk to Amanda.
We're taking referrals potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming you're already in contact with them, the City Sanctuary and Refugee Council, but I've moved from Refugee Council, so if it's helpful to put anyone in touch are happy to help.
Okay, brilliant.
And that's exactly what it is.
What was your name again?
So
Sorry.
Jasmine Evans.
Jasmine Evans.
Yeah. Another one.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments or things that might be useful that haven't been covered? No? It's a very comprehensive presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I do have a question actually.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay, sorry.
That's all right.
You mentioned the training.
Yeah.
The training for grant providers,
Yeah.
how to understand accounts, and spotting red flags. What are the most common red flags?
Oh, good question.
I haven't actually been on the training myself, even though I've been at WYCAS for 2 years, and I've been saying from the beginning, like, I really want to go on that because it's good to know what people would be looking out for. But from my sort of accountancy background, it would be things like in-year deficits, negative kind of reserves in your accounts, where effectively you may have you may have restricted funding, but your unrestricted is negative, which basically means you're subsidising your activities with your restricted funds. So that's kind of a no-no.
Sorry.
Those are probably the two main ones off the top of my head. But,
What if your unrestricted income is minimal, but then your restricted income is like 99.5%, which that's pretty much is.
yeah.
It's, it's vast majority is restricted.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a problem in itself.
Yeah.
I guess the thing to think about there, which I'm sure you're aware of, is if that restricted funding ends, what do what commitments do you have that, so for example, the main things being staff employed on like fixed term contracts or permanent contracts, and grant funding comes to an end, and then what do you have to do? You've got to find redundancy payments or whatever, effectively. So that's why we always, in terms of reserves, you want some cushion of unrestricted reserves to cover that sort of thing. So if people have to be made redundant, have you got enough money in your unrestricted to pay some redundancy costs if they're not in the grant, built into the grant, which is probably unlikely.
How many months restricted carryover would you like say look sustainable on your accounts?
Again, it depends on the level of your commitments. Trustees should have a reserves policy.
Yeah.
So when, as part of our accounts prep and IE, we always look at the reserves. Particularly with cash accounts, you don't have to have a reserve policy. If you don't have one, you have to state that you don't have one in the accounts, and we always recommend that it's best practice to have a reserves policy, even if you don't have to have one. And we normally say you should have a range of, say, 3 to 6 months unrestricted spend available in your reserves. So 3 to 6 months of your running costs for the year, for example.
But what if you can't do that? Because, like I say, if you're relying on, Paul said earlier, if you're relying on grant funding, and by large grant funding is contractual,
Yeah.
it means it's restricted.
You have to spend it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know, and that is a problem for charities that are mainly funded by restricted grants. That is a risk factor, effectively. But I mean, it's not. Nothing's. Your accounts aren't going to get signed, and not going to get signed off. Sorry, double negative. But it's just something to be aware of. That that is a risk factor, and so potentially in terms of grant funding, then if you either just recruit people on fixed term contracts, or you try and build in as much funding for stuff like the closing down effectively into grant applications as you can.
Okay.
But yeah, it kind of depends on the grant funders as to how much you can get in. One thing I didn't say actually. in terms of like your accounts fee and things like that, you can build that into grant applications because it's part of like existing as a charity. You have to have over 25k, you have to have an independent exam. Under 25k, you don't have to. You can prepare your own accounts as well. But the cost of like any verification or accounts prep, you build it into grant funding, and then that's another way of trying to manage your risk, is just build in as much cost as you can into any grant funding towards your running costs. So when anything that is an expense in terms of like existing as a charity, try and get it on grant funding. Yeah.
So that's a great question, thank you. So that really leads us perfectly into the next bit. I'm just thinking we're looking good on time. Does anybody want a couple of minutes for getting another brew or nip to the loo? Get back. 7 minutes. It's Olympics week.
We watched the video later and that's me. Yes, this records and we'll put it on YouTube afterwards. We've got a next in week. Well, no, we'll do that. We'll do an hour's fashion page. It goes on YouTube afterwards. The viewing figures for it is extremely low. I think it's probably really awful. If you don't even understand, you don't know. We quite good evidence when we report notes. This is our, although we're chairing it, this is an hour over, so good evidence to prove that we've been in
Unemployed by more.
Yeah. It's just
because our family stuff was
I was literally saying that. I'm sure you have you been before?
Yes.
Yeah. We want to do more well-being activities. So it is, it's great, and it's free to access as well.
I'm confident in the last week, so
but the play area is great as well.
Well, then you have a telephone call assessment there.
Probably
I like your ideas.
good uptake there because they come in as a family.
I like it when you enjoy that.
What we consider a lot. Parents didn't very long to play. So putting in a section play area, all the parents sit and the kids go and play. And that's what we try and do at our sessions. We're like, and they all play together with the kids. Love it. Because especially when our COVID, just see what parents feel silly. That play the same game, but actually the kids get the rules. So, you know, there's actual played anywhere, so we go through
Still there, it's a break. Buy one, 3 or 4 days for about 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. So everything we've got to
but what we have found as well, kids especially if there's a play area, they then stay longer, so if they stay longer.
Where are you all based? Oh, really? Perfect, which is back in the middle.
Yeah.
Are they there anyway? In general?
Yes, I think
We've got really lovely websites. Don't go on that, we don't use it. That's where we're
Yeah, we're really surprised by the
we're always looking for venues.
Yeah, it's nice going somewhere different. If you want to do like an activity or do a walk around or whatever, and then I feel like interesting venues is quite nice.
So yeah, so we'll move on about so sort of 15, 20 minutes, and then we've got a little bit of a feedback session at the end. Being asked to get your views on. So, yeah, following on from what you said, Nidge, and obviously Kate's presentation, just some thoughts really, or ideas, not that I want to steal any ideas or anything like that, but to diversify income streams. So, for example, like I say, we have a bit of a revelation, which is like, this is not really a robust business model. And let's face it, most of us come into this sector because we're passionate about what we do and we want to help people, and kind of running the business isn't, it's not what we came in to do, and then we find ourselves doing all of these different jobs. So yeah, it's great that there's sort of crowdfunding around. We don't know what the future looks like in terms of support for the sector nationally or locally. We're fortunate in that we have diversified, so we're not just kind of a walking group or whatever. So again, we can take menopause support, for example, into businesses. Andy's qualified as a menopause first aider, so we can also talk to guys about what they might be experiencing with their partners and loved ones, friends and colleagues and so on. So we can kind of take that into the business world. Again, we kind of partner with other organisations that pay us to come in and deliver, let's get cooking sessions, for example. So we, and Andy's PE qualified, PE coach qualified, so we go into schools. So we're not doing all of those things just yet, but that's definitely our strategy. Yeah, so you know, we have that potential, and we're definitely looking at shifting the percentage of our revenue and income and capital and all those other business words that don't really understand. You know, the percentages, so that we're not 99.9% reliant, that we have got some backup and everything else. So that's us. So just wanted to kind of shout out what the guys are doing, or whether you think that's something that your organisation could do as well. And maybe we can help each other with some ideas as well if you've got any kind of issues.
Sorry, I was just going to say actually, we were talking about grants earlier and being restricted. The best thing to do is, if you can, is to get an unrestricted grant. So it's still grant funded, but it's unrestricted, which means you can use it for running costs, you can use it for all those kind of things, and you are then allowed to like, you don't have to kind of like in your accounts separately account for it, because it just goes into your running cost budget, and if there's any of that left over, then that you can use that to build up your unrestricted reserves. So unrestricted grants are
Chicken's teeth.
good.
Well, yeah,
true,
yeah,
true. But there are we see, you know, a fair few.
Nova and Mental Health Alliance did the Thinking Differently.
Yeah.
Which was coming to Nova, which was 2 years. Again, we were fortunate, and that was unrestricted. It had, because of the Mental Health Alliance, it did have an underlying tone,
Yes.
but it certainly wasn't specific in terms of what you had to deliver. And that's been great. And that was a pilot, so hopefully, so there was 5 organisations that were beneficiaries of that, so hopefully we've all, and the idea was that at the end of the 2 years you were more resilient and not certainly bigger, but certainly more resilient than when you came into it. So hopefully that's been a success, and that hopefully will pave the way for more like it. But it's pretty much the only one I know of in that time frame for Wakefield anyway.
Yeah.
But that again feeds into the feedback at the end of the work after. So yeah, any kind of pinch points, any epiphanies, any oh shit moments that any of you guys have had, and what you've done about them. Oh, this is going to be a quick session.
I think you touched on something though, around diversification, and that's partnership with other sectors. You know, whether that's the private sector, education sector. That to me is the way forward to generating an alternative income stream. Because when you think about it, the core business of all of this, our sector, as it were, is to support and improve people's lives. We say community, don't we? We say community like it's one kind of block. But there's so many variations in that block. We conveniently say community. There's actually about 90 odd definitions of community. The private sector has got people there, you know, they're a community, aren't they? So this is a message that we kind of like looked at with the cans, you know, about, again, you know, alternative income streams, diversification, and the partnerships with the private sector is generally really underdeveloped.
Yeah. I know Prosper are trying to do a thing, aren't they?
Yeah, that's interesting. That, and again, I'm not in the direct, but I did have an interesting conversation at one point because the feel of the conversation I had with Prosper, and again, it wasn't a formal conversation; it was just a telephone call with Kat, and that was more about CSR.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking
Oh,
about.
okay. No, it's
That's a different relationship altogether.
Right, okay.
You know, that's effectively the private sector saying, we might sponsor you,
Send some volunteers.
we might do something for you on a one-off, or, you know, a few members of staff might give you a day, a year or whatever. That's a different relationship.
Yeah.
The relationship I was stressing in that conversation was an equal partner in a venture, particularly where there's lots of services the private sector deliver, like home care support, for example. Where can a community organisation add value to that service and say, look, next time it goes for tender, for example, if you were to say you were working with X and Y and we can provide this added value to your service, you're far more likely to then win it again. So you become part of that service, you piggyback on it. It may be that you may do more than piggyback, but you know, whatever fits. But it is about adding value to services that are delivered by private sector. Because after all, a lot of what we're doing is adding value to the services that are delivered by the public sector, the NHS. We're looking to add value to that, so you could equally add it to private sector delivery.
Yeah, and I think, you know, sort of the thing for me, which is really obvious, is that the communities that we're working in are the private sector's employees.
Well, yeah.
So, you know, so obviously the healthier and happier people within our communities are, the healthier our children grow up, and so on and so forth, which we do work in schools. You know, the financially more stable, certainly local businesses or local branches of the big businesses are going to be, because they're going to have less sick days, they're going to have a happier workforce, they're going to be more profitable, they could expand, they could take on more staff. It's
Yeah, I mean, for example,
it's a strong pitch.
Yeah, it is.
To the right person.
Yeah, I mean, I years ago in Stoke-on-Trent, I worked for a mental health charity who went into private businesses to sell the idea of mental health champions training, and that was really successful. Yeah, a lot of particularly big organisations who you could argue that have to tick a box as well, but it's still a worthwhile and valuable exercise. And they delivered a whole range of mental health training for workplace champions, basically, to identify people who were under stress and at risk of mental distress, and then how to engage them into a conversation and kind of peer mentor. It worked really well, but that's a whole new market.
Absolutely. And look at it now, we're like,
Yeah, this was going back at least many years ago, 15 years ago or whatever. But yeah, and now it's more of a trend, isn't it now? More established.
so So yes, so certainly sort of private sector education. So actually you do a lot of work in schools, don't you?
Yeah.
Do the schools commission you to do that?
No, we no. This is one of the barriers. I mean, everyone's just tied to their pockets, aren't they? Their wallets. So when we've done provided interventions in schools and colleges, we provide free services.
Okay.
I mean, the end outcome would be, if they like the service enough, to try and get something out of it. But then it's, I think, for us, I mean, I've only been doing it really over a year, just over 2 years now. Yeah, 2 years now. So I'm at the stage of just building that report stuff, because I mean, when you're working with young people in the academic environment, you're obviously bound by term time when you can run the projects, but then demonstrating outcomes and impact in terms of the young people you're working with takes time. So it's not going to happen overnight, it's not going to happen in a 6-week program. So I think it's something that's going to build up over the years, but I don't know, I just think it's generally challenging full stop anyway in terms of the environment that we've got, because I mean, we've already mentioned the NHS coming to an end. Home Office doesn't know where it's dishing its money out. Technically, even when you look at Violence Reduction Partnership and WYCAS, they don't know where their money's coming from at the minute, certainly VIP. So there's a lot of changes happening at the minute that I think it's going to be difficult for the next 2 years. The thing about people is, I did the VIP's leadership program earlier this year, and it was really useful because we did actually talk about a subject of where does money come from. Over 50% comes from the public, less than 30% or less than 20% actually comes from grant funding. Gap in the middle.
Who said that, sorry?
Sorry?
Who said that?
I'm not going to tell you.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to tell you this. I was in the leadership program. Charity excellence. If you look at charity excellence, it's got a lot of data. And they'll actually tell you where money goes in general. So you do need to tap into people. Now, for organisations like yourselves, it might be easy because you can build a community, you can show off your community. The Mining Museum, you might be able to do that as well, show off the great work you do. An organisation like us, sometimes it can be hard, so we've got a Man Matters project, so we could potentially show them off. However, they talk about subjects such as domestic abuse and sexual violence. So we can't show off the community. So we actually struggle to generate advocates. Although they like the service and they advocate for it, by word of mouth where they feel safe. We can't show them off publicly. So, I mean, say for example, few of you know my journey is addiction recovery. I'll happily advocate for my journey and the support that WYCAS does provide me as part of that journey. But it's really hard to get people to just step up and talk about their journey. But it's creating those advocates. But when you're dealing with difficult subjects, it's really hard.
As well as when it's a case of getting the funders to come in and actually see and feel it and be part of it rather than just look at the tick box and go, oh, they've done this, they've done that, or they've met that. You can't showcase it, actually show it and feel it and a conversation with someone who has suffered years and years of domestic abuse and have a conversation, and that's the kind of mic drop into it. Unless they're in there experiencing that conversation, they just won't know.
But again, even our coffee groups, Tom, you've run a few now, Reese has just joined us at Sargeant. You guys know more better than me that they're quite protective about their group. So if anyone from the outside comes in, they get rid of it, then they close up again because they're like, who's that person who's just walked in? So it's really difficult to say, oh, we've got a funder coming, because they'll be like, well, what does that mean?
Is that those ones come in for 6-7 weeks to build that relationship conversations and get to the point where they do that. It might not be 7, it might be 17 weeks. And I think that is a difficult challenge to have, but as you said earlier, schools and with these groups, it takes time. It takes a long time to build up that, and that's not something you can be funded over 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and then have your results. It don't work that way. There's been years of trauma. It can't take weeks to solve it. It could take years.
Yeah, it's not so much about funding, is it? It's about alternative income.
Yes.
You know,
But if
and to approach a particularly large company, where, and in larger companies, they may well identify staff turnover rates are quite high. And it's to my mind, an approach, not particularly for gas, well, it could be for mining, but approaching the HR people around the opportunity to offer a service where people can then get access to face-to-face. Because a lot of these companies have a phone call line.
Yeah.
And I've never used one myself, to be honest, but if you're talking about a subject matter like that, I think you'd probably get further with a face-to-face.
yes, you would.
I spoke to a local firm a year or so ago, manufacturing, and just actually, you probably know this, but in terms of sickness, which costs the UK economy billions each year, stress and anxiety is now the number one reason for people taking time off. And the industries, if you will, that are most affected are manufacturing, care and education. You know, so in this area, it's an awful thing to say, but the need is there, the demand is there, isn't it? That if you could quantify the saving, I don't know how you would do it, but if you could quantify the saving to a company for that kind of service, it is difficult, but it's, I'm sure, the stats are the stats, isn't it? So,
One thing that we did do recently, and this was leading up to the Euros, I don't know if you saw our domestic abuse campaign for the Euros. So I watched football, I was watching football all season, and I thought every advert during football, they're now actually talking about men's mental health and gambling. It's a very common thing now. So with the Euros, I've been reading VRP's Violence Reduction Partnership's report, so they basically said that during football, domestic abuse will rise. So, okay, they're not alcohol fueled and emotionally fueled, that's the main reason, because obviously domestic abuse still exists. So it's not the sole reason. So let's try a campaign. I'll be honest with you, the bottom line of was our campaign effective? Well, there's two ways of looking at it. Yes, it raised awareness, but we tried to drive donations. Did we get donations? To this point, I can't actually see any. Now, the thing is, again, we're a small local charity. So naturally, you're going to think of, I mean, if you look at the adverts, you're looking at big charities that everyone recognises, like Women's Aid, Samaritans, but that's how they